Unlock Your Mental Abilities by Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 1. The Key Hidden in Your Brain. You are not fixed. You are fluid. Imagine holding the master key to your entire life. Most of us go through the motions, never realizing that this power, a mechanism capable of radically transforming your life, enhancing your capabilities and shattering your self-imposed limits, is already tucked inside our heads. We're not talking about parlor tricks like memory feats or being a math prodigy. We're talking about fundamental, life-altering skills, the ability to think creatively, to learn faster, to stay calm under crushing pressure, to focus like a laser, and to generate profound, lasting changes in how you feel and act. Your mind is the ultimate software running your entire physical and emotional system. And the most incredible news, that software can be rewritten. Your brain, a city that never stops rebuilding. We estimate your brain holds around 86 billion neurons, but the staggering number isn't the real miracle. It's the way they communicate. Each neuron can forge thousands of connections with others, forming networks more complex and extensive than any city ever built. These connections aren't set in stone. They are fluid. They change, strengthen, weaken, or create new pathways based on every thought, every action, and every experience you have. Remember the clumsy, frustrating first attempts at riding a bike. Falls, wobbly pedaling, hesitation. But with every wince and every push, your brain was quietly reinforcing the circuits needed for balance, vision, and movement. Until one day, suddenly, you were just doing it. This dynamic, continuous rewiring is called neuroplasticity, and it is the foundation of this book, The Myth of the Rigid Mind. For centuries, we were sold a lie, that the brain was a fixed machine destined only to deteriorate after a certain age. We were told, you can't change anymore, you were born that way, or those born crooked never straighten out. This is absolutely false. We now know that your brain changes until the very last day of your life. If you were truly a rigid structure, how could you possibly learn a new language at 50, recover fine motor skills after an accident, or effortlessly adapt to a new technology that was baffling just last year? Every time you do any of these things, your mind is proving that it reinvents itself. The evidence of reinvention. Take the powerful real-life story of Walter Geo. In 1915, this Canadian soldier suffered horrific facial burns in WWI. His life seemed doomed to isolation. However, pioneering surgeon Harold Gillis attempted something revolutionary, a major skin transplant to reconstruct his face. Against all odds, Walter's brain learned to interpret those new nerve endings as his own. He didn't just regain mobility, he regained his identity. Why does this matter to you? It proves the brain adapts not just physically but psychologically. Just as Walter relearned to control muscles that were no longer the same, you can literally reprogram emotional responses, entrenched attitudes, and limiting beliefs that seem fixed in your personality. Your thoughts are not simply flashes of light in the void. Every single time you think a thought, like, I can't do it, you fire and reinforce that neural network. But if you deliberately choose to focus your attention on a different, empowering thought, you begin building a brand new circuit. You are not just thinking, you are training your mind. A fascinating experiment at Harvard University confirmed this brain training power. One group physically practiced a simple piano sequence for 5 days. A second group only imagined it mentally, without moving their fingers. When researchers compared the brains of both groups, both had developed similar changes in the motor control areas. Your mind truly doesn't distinguish as much between what you vividly imagine and what you physically do. Both processes modify your brain's structure. The key is awareness. You're likely asking, okay, how do I start using this key? The first essential step is realizing that you carry the key with you. Awareness is the switch that ignites the entire process of change. Most people operate on emotional and mental autopilot. They react with anger, doubt themselves habitually, or unknowingly sabotage their own goals. When you pause and deliberately observe yourself, you break that autopilot loop. You create the crucial space to act differently. This is what the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard meant when he said, The door to happiness opens outward. You have to step back a little to open it. In this context, stepping back means observing yourself, recognizing your repetitive patterns, and consciously deciding which mental doors you want to open. If you embark on this journey, don't approach it looking for instant results, but as an explorer. The explorer knows there will be sunny days and unexpected storms, but their curiosity and commitment keep them moving forward. This is the attitude that will unlock your full mental abilities: curiosity, patience, and the commitment to continuous self-experimentation. Now let's establish a compass for your journey. What single mental capacity would you most like to awaken in yourself that you believe you don't fully possess today? Do you crave more concentration, greater creativity, a steady stream of calm, or unshakable confidence? Whatever it is, keep that capacity clearly in your mind. Because throughout this book, we will build the precise tools to make it flourish. Chapter 2. The Myth of Mental Limits. Your ceiling is just a belief. How often have you heard or said yourself phrases that act like intellectual handcuffs? I'm just no good with numbers. I have a terrible memory. Or creativity is only for artists. Repeated aloud or silently, these phrases become invisible chains that restrict everything you believe is possible. But what if these limits weren't real, but simply cultural and mental constructs we've accepted without ever questioning them? The idea that the human mind has a fixed ceiling is one of the most destructive myths in our society. It breeds conformity, kills enthusiasm for trying new things, and, worst of all, robs you of the excitement of discovering your true capabilities. For centuries, science operated under a pessimistic view. You were born with a certain number of neurons, and all you could do over time was lose them. Education, under this model, was simply about pouring knowledge into a container that couldn't change its shape. If you struggled in school, the system simply labeled you as lacking talent. The dangerous trap of labels. This myth was powerfully reinforced by an education system that measured everyone with the same yardstick. Standardized tests and rote memorization, ignoring the reality that people learn in different ways. Many of us grew up genuinely believing we were incompetent in certain subjects, when in reality, we just needed a different approach. Here's the trap. When someone tells a child, "You're distracted," "You're slow," or "You're no good at this," the brain registers it as truth. These labels instantly become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You begin to act, feel, and decide according to the low opinion you've absorbed. Even more curious is that you become your own worst labeler. You tell yourself, "I'm too old to learn this," or "I just don't have the discipline." Crucially, these phrases do not describe your reality. They describe your perception of your reality. And what you perceive is not always what is. The case that shattered the myth. The true revolution against the fixed brain idea began in 1953 with a young man named Henry Mollison, later known as Patient HM. After surgery to treat his epilepsy, Henry tragically lost the ability to form new memories. His case was a scientific game-changer. It proved that the brain isn't just one big, static box. It's an organ with specialized, distinct systems that could be understood and potentially trained. Thanks to Henry Mollison, scientists discovered that memory, learning, and identity were not simple talents or gifts, but malleable brain functions. This single revelation cracked open the door to modern neuroscience, fully debunking the myth of fixed limits. Today, we know your brain transforms with every new experience. Neuroplasticity, that staggering power to reorganize, means you can learn a complex instrument, speak an entire language, master meditation, or solve abstract problems even if you've never touched them before. Take bilingualism. MRI research shows that people who learn a second language, even well into adulthood, develop greater gray matter density in areas linked to memory and attention. They weren't born with a special gift. They simply trained and molded their brains into a new, expanded form. How you feed your own limits. Your mental limits are not written in your DNA or carved in stone. They are actively fed by three main factors: culture, what your immediate environment believes is possible. If everyone around you believes intelligence is fixed, you will likely accept that boundary too. Repetition, Every time you reinforce a limiting thought, "I always mess this up," your brain strengthens that neural network, turning a stray thought into a mental habit. The fear of error. We were conditioned to avoid mistakes, yet error is the single most powerful tool for learning. By fearing it, you halt your own growth. The man with the infinite memory. The little-known Russian psychologist Alexander Luria documented the case of Solomon Cherysheevsky in the mid-20th century. Cherysheevsky possessed what seemed like an unlimited memory. He could recall lists of hundreds of words, numbers, or sounds with flawless accuracy, even decades later. What was most surprising was that he was an otherwise ordinary person with no special training. His brain had developed synesthetic associations, a blending of senses, that naturally amplified his recall. Cherysheevsky's story reminds us that what we consider normal human capability may be just the tip of the iceberg. You may not develop a photographic memory, but you can certainly conquer what you currently think is your limit. 3 steps to freedom. To begin freeing yourself from the myth of mental limits, start with these 3 practical steps. Question your labels. Write down a specific belief you have about yourself, such as, "I'm bad at concentrating." Then ask yourself, when did this originate? Who told me this? Is this a fact or simply my interpretation? Challenge the source. Redefine the mistake. The next time you fail or stumble at something, immediately reframe it. Mentally repeat, "This mistake is another building block in my learning." Reframe failure as feedback. Make novelty a habit. Every time you try something you've never done before, learn a new recipe, use a new software tool, solve a complex puzzle, your brain expands. Actively seek out newness to stimulate continuous plasticity. The central idea is crystal clear. You are not the sum of your limitations, but the sum of your possibilities. What you were yesterday does not and cannot define what you can become tomorrow. Science has proven that your mental abilities are not static. They are dynamic, expansive, and infinitely malleable. As the poet William Blake suggested, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. That infinity is within you, waiting for you to dare to open the door. Chapter 3. The Secret Language of the Brain. Speaking the Code of Change. If you've ever found yourself in a foreign country without knowing the language, you understand the deep frustration, gestures, sounds, and improvised drawings, and still, half the message is lost. Now, imagine you possess a silent, powerful internal translator, a system that communicates not with words, but with electrical impulses, profound emotions, and sensory experiences. This is the secret language of your brain. Understanding it doesn't just allow you to translate what you think and feel, it hands you the key to consciously and deliberately shaping your own mind. Your brain is talking constantly, even when you aren't aware you're listening. The code of connections. Repetition is trust. Every thought you have is essentially a high-speed conversation between billions of neurons. These cells exchange chemical and electrical signals across tiny gaps called synapses. The core principle of this language is simple. Repetition strengthens the bond. The more times you repeat a thought or action, the stronger and faster that connection becomes, like a path in the forest that widens into a highway with constant use. Here is the critical, non-judgmental nature of the brain. It doesn't distinguish between a useful path and a useless one. If you spend years mentally repeating, "I'm terrible at public speaking," that phrase will become as solidly grounded in your neural circuitry as if you had practiced a flawless speech every single morning. Your brain only strengthens what you consistently repeat, not what's necessarily convenient or beneficial for you. Words that don't just describe, they create think back to childhood advice or criticisms. "Don't be silly," "just shut up," or "you don't know enough." Even if said carelessly, those words can install themselves as invisible, self-limiting commands in your system. Neuroscience confirms this. Words don't just describe reality, they literally create it within your brain. A study at Emory University showed that when participants heard sensory metaphors like "she had a velvety voice," The areas of their brain related to touch were activated. Language is not neutral. It tangibly changes your neural experience. If simple metaphors can alter your perception, imagine the immense power of the thoughts and phrases you repeat to yourself every day. Emotion, the fluorescent highlighter of memory. The brain doesn't just speak in words and connections. Its main grammatical structure is emotion. Anything tinged with strong emotion is remembered far more vividly. That's why you can recall exactly where you were when you heard shocking news, but not what you ate 10 days ago. Neurologist Antonio Damasio explained that emotions function as somatic markers, physical signals that tell your brain what is supremely important and what can be discarded. To put it simply, emotion is the fluorescent highlighter of your memory. This has a powerful practical implication. If you want your brain to learn a new skill or change a deeply ingrained habit, you must involve emotion in the process. Pure theory or mechanical repetition is not enough. You need an effective spark, an emotional charge to imprint the learning deeply. Accessing the deep archives. In a remarkable series of experiments in 1964, Canadian surgeon Wilder Penfield electrically stimulated different areas of the brains of patients undergoing epilepsy surgery. To his astonishment, the patients began to relive forgotten memories in exquisite detail. The faint smell of a childhood room, fragments of old conversations, or entire songs. Penfield showed us that the brain stores far more than we consciously access, and that access depends on the internal signal, the language we use. How to speak to your mind in its own language. If your brain has a secret language, how do you use it to your advantage? Meaningful repetition with feeling. It's not enough to repeat affirmations mechanically, saying, "I can do this," while actively generating a feeling of enthusiasm and certainty creates a deeper neural impact than repeating it blankly. Vivid mental imagery. Your brain responds intensely to visuals. When you mentally rehearse a successful outcome, the motor and emotional areas of your brain light up, mirroring the experience of actually doing it. Personal metaphors. Create powerful symbols that resonate only with you. If you visualize your focus as a laser beam cutting through noise, your mind will grasp that image far better than an abstract definition of concentration. The power of silence. The brain's secret language doesn't always need words. When you meditate or simply close your eyes to breathe, your brain shifts into slower, more receptive wave states, alpha or theta, that facilitate plasticity. In these moments, the internal language becomes clearer and more easily reprogrammed. The next time you hear yourself say, "I can't," or "This is just how I am," pause and ask yourself, who taught me those words? Are they part of my true language, or are they inherited limiting phrases? By questioning them, you begin to scrub clean your internal dictionary and start writing a new one. As the writer Elias Canetti noted, the words you choose are always more revealing than the ones you think you've chosen. Pay attention to your words because they are the notes with which you compose the music of your brain. Your brain communicates not with complex logical discourses, but with connections, emotions, and images. That is its secret language. Learn to speak it consciously, and you will begin to reprogram your mind to serve you instead of limiting you. Your task is simple. Turn your internal dialogue into your most powerful ally. Make every thought, every word, and every emotion a powerful message that reinforces the version of yourself you want to build. Remember, your brain is always listening. What story are you telling it right now? Chapter 4. The Battle with the Environment. Breaking free from the invisible cage. Take a moment to consider how much of your identity is sculpted by your surroundings. Your family, your social circle, the city's vibe, the culture you absorbed. Your environment is not neutral. It subtly influences, conditions, and even programs your most basic behaviors. The clothes you wear, your moral compass, the career path you deem acceptable, nearly everything carries the DNA of your surroundings. The problem arises when your environment transitions from a supportive habitat to an invisible cage. If you don't actively question it, you risk spending decades operating solely on the expectations of others, not your own deepest desires. It's like living in a theater where you are endlessly playing a role written by someone else. The brain's double-edged sword. Our brains are fundamentally wired to learn from the environment. From childhood, we flawlessly imitate eating habits, speech patterns, and what is defined as success. This ability to adapt is essential for survival, but it can quickly become an obstacle when the learned lessons limit your potential. For instance, if you grew up hearing money corrupts, you might unconsciously sabotage financial prosperity, associating it with guilt. If no one in your family ever exercised, you might believe today that you're not built for sports, when the reality is you simply never saw it modeled as a normal, desirable activity. Your environment shapes your initial beliefs, but it absolutely does not have to dictate your future. The power of the label and the setting. In the 1970s, psychologist David Rosenhan conducted a controversial, eye-opening experiment. He sent 8 perfectly healthy volunteers into psychiatric hospitals, instructing them to feign only one vague symptom: hearing voices. Once admitted, they acted completely normally. Shockingly, all were diagnosed with serious mental disorders and remained hospitalized for weeks. What did this prove? That the environment and the label influence how we are perceived and treated more profoundly than reality. Though these individuals were healthy, the institutional context transformed them into sick people. The same phenomenon occurs in everyday life. Your environment can reinforce an identity that isn't truly yours until you internalize and believe the lie yourself. The contagion of emotion. Psychologist Nicholas Christakis at Harvard researched how social behaviors spread through groups. He discovered that emotions like happiness or sadness are highly contagious, spreading through social networks and groups of friends, even extending beyond your immediate contact. If a friend of your friend becomes depressed, you are statistically more likely to feel discouraged yourself. This is a stark reminder. Your environment dictates not only what you think, but also how you feel. This is why the deliberate choice of who you spend time with is paramount to your mental health and emotional programming. From dictator to teacher. The environment can be a teacher, but it must never be a dictator. To regain control and become the scriptwriter of your own story, use these practical steps. Detect inherited patterns. List common, recurring phrases from your family or original environment, e.g., "In this house no one studies hard," or "Only the lucky get rich." Ask yourself, do I consciously want to continue operating under these outdated rules? Create micro-environments. You don't need to move across the country to change. Create small, dedicated spaces that inspire your desired self, a reading nook at home, a specialized study group, or a designated space for silence and reflection. Surround yourself with expanders. Actively seek out people who live the life you aspire to live. Their existence and example act as a constant, living reminder that another reality is possible. The paradox of transformation. Here's the fascinating detail. While the environment shapes your mind has the profound ability to shape the environment right back. Think of Wangari Maathai, the Kenyan activist. Growing up in a region devastated by deforestation, she didn't just resist her adverse environment. She began planting trees in her own garden, eventually founding the Greenbelt movement, which has planted over 50 million trees. She transformed her environment. The real battle isn't about escaping your surroundings. It's about training your autonomy from them. Every time you consciously choose what to believe, what to do, and with whom to share your energy, you strengthen your muscle of mental independence. Try this simple practice. Spend 10 minutes every day observing your thoughts and asking, am I thinking this, or did my environment give me this thought? Consistently asking this question will help you separate your authentic inner voice from external voices. Your environment is inevitable. You will always be surrounded by stimuli and people. But your power lies in deciding how to respond to it. You can choose to be a passive product of your surroundings or an active protagonist who selects, filters, and transforms what you receive. Remember, you don't have to adapt to every scenario like a chameleon. Sometimes the greatest display of intelligence is the courage to be the fish that swims against the current. As anthropologist Margaret Mead wisely noted, Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. You can be part of that group, starting with your own inner world. Which inherited pattern or cage from your environment are you ready to question today? Chapter 5. Your body doesn't rule, you decide, breaking the body's autopilot. We've all been there. You consciously decide, I'm going to stay calm, but your heart immediately starts racing. You promise to eat healthy, but your hand reaches for the cookies before your mind can even register the choice. You want to get up at dawn, but your body drags your arm to hit the snooze button. It often feels like your body has a stubborn, separate will, as if it's the true master of your destiny. The reality is this: your body stores memory. Over years of repetition, you've memorized certain emotions, reactions, and physical habits until they have become automated. Think of it like a long-time employee who, after doing a task thousands of times, no longer needs instructions. They execute it purely out of habit. The key question is, who is truly in charge? You or your automatisms? The physical mark of emotion. Every emotion leaves a physical signature. Fear makes your heart pound. Sadness creates a heavy, slumped posture. Anxiety alters your shallow breathing. When these emotions are repeated endlessly, the body learns to reproduce the physical state even when the original trigger is gone. This is why someone who endured years of stress might still feel constant tension in their shoulders or neck, even on a relaxing vacation. Neuroscientist Candice Pert discovered that emotions aren't just abstract thoughts. They are stored as neuropeptides and molecules in various parts of the body. This explains why reliving a memory can instantly bring a knot to your stomach or a sudden warmth to your chest. Your body speaks a deep, silent language, and if you don't listen to it consciously, it will absolutely end up making your decisions for you. The tyranny of habit. Physical habits are immensely powerful because they are energy-saving mechanisms. Imagine having to consciously deliberate every movement required for a simple walk. It would be exhausting. The problem is that the brain applies this same energy-saving logic to everything. If you repeatedly engage in a reaction, like checking your phone the instant you feel boredom or grabbing a snack whenever you sit on the couch, the brain programs it as an automatic response. Over time, that habit overrides your conscious intention. In fact, Duke University studies show that more than 40% of our daily actions are not conscious decisions, but mindless, automatic routines. In the 1930s, psychologist B.F. Skinner trained pigeons to press a lever for food. Later, when he began feeding them randomly, the pigeons developed bizarre, repetitive, seemingly superstitious behaviors like circling or specific pecking patterns. They believed their action brought the reward, even though the reward was now random. Sound familiar? Humans are no different. We cling to emotional and physical routines that once served a purpose, even when they no longer make sense, because our bodies have them deeply ingrained. How to reclaim control. The first step in regaining control is recognizing that you are more than your physical body. Your conscious mind has the power to intervene and retrain those physical memories. Here are practical exercises to break the cycle. Observe the impulse. The next time you feel an automatic habit kick in, like an urge to reach for a cigarette or scroll social media for no reason, do not immediately stop it. Instead, pause for 1 second, observe the feeling, and mentally say, "My body is asking for this now." That tiny pause creates the critical space needed for your conscious mind to decide rather than automatically react. Breathe differently. The body's remote control. Your breath is the quickest way to change your physical state. Try the 4-2-6 technique. Inhale deeply through your nose for 4 seconds, hold for 2 seconds, and exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds. Doing this several times a day will visibly shift your emotional and physical state, proving to your body that you are in command. Break inertia. Introduce small, arbitrary variations into your daily life. Walk a different route to work. Switch the hand you use to brush your teeth. Listen to new music genres. These small changes deprogram your body's inertia and force your brain to wake up and pay attention. the mind that shapes muscle. A stunning example of mental control comes from the world of sports science. Researchers at the Cleveland Clinic found that people who simply imagined lifting weights without moving a single muscle increased their muscle strength by an average of 13% after weeks of mental practice. The body obeyed the mind even without physical action. This finding confirms that you are not a slave to what your body remembers. With consistent mental training, you can rewrite deeply held physical functions. The goal isn't to fight your body, but to turn it into an obedient and flexible ally. Think of it as a well-meaning child that learned certain habits, some helpful, others harmful. If you provide new, clear instructions with patience and perseverance, it will learn again. To do this, practice anchoring new experiences with physical sensations. For example, if you want to cultivate calm, accompany your daily meditation with a physical gesture, such as placing your hand gently over your heart. Over time, that specific gesture will act as an anchor. Your body will recognize it and drop into a state of calm almost instantly. The essential message of this chapter is clear. Your body doesn't rule, you decide. Yes, it holds memories and habits, but it is also brilliantly designed to learn again. What seems automatic and uncontrollable today can become flexible and renewed tomorrow. Remember the words of the philosopher Epictetus, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And being master of yourself begins with recognizing that your body is your tool, not your jailer. You have the final say. Chapter 6. Time as an ally, not an enemy, the power of the conscious now. If there's one thing that uniformly stresses us all, it is time. We constantly feel its shortage, as if it's slipping through our fingers while we desperately chase a train we can never catch. But what if time wasn't your enemy, but one of the most powerful tools available to unlock your mind's potential? Time doesn't just measure life. It fundamentally shapes how we experience it. The relationship you maintain with time largely determines your stress levels, your capacity for deep learning, and your ability to transform yourself personally. Prisoners of the clock. We live mentally trapped in three forms of time: the past, the present, and the future. The problem arises when the past becomes a rigid prison of negative memories, or the future transforms into an inexhaustible wellspring of anxiety. You've surely seen this in yourself or others. Some people constantly relive past mistakes, allowing them to act as invisible chains. Others mentally anticipate everything that could possibly go wrong, generating worries that rarely, if ever, materialize. Both groups tragically miss the only real moment, the now. Neuroscience backs this up powerfully. MRI studies show that when you vividly relive a negative memory, your brain activates the same areas as when you originally experienced the trauma. Your body, in effect, feels the same pain as if it were happening all over again. Similarly, when you constantly anticipate a future problem, your body releases stress hormones, even though nothing is currently happening in the present moment. In 1929, physicist Edwin Hubble, of the famous telescope, discovered that the universe is constantly expanding. This forever changed our understanding of time, viewing it not as a linear, immutable river, but as something dynamic and constantly moving. Why is this relevant to you? Because your brain is also an expanding universe. You are not condemned to repeat the same loops. You can expand into a different future if you learn to use time as an ally instead of experiencing it as a prison. The present, your access point for change. You can only modify your thoughts, shift your emotions, and make new decisions in this instant. Neither yesterday nor tomorrow are available for action. The only thing that is real and actionable is this very second. This may seem like an overly simple idea, but it is profoundly transformative. When you train your mind to intentionally return to the present, you immediately reduce the activity of the amygdala, your brain's fear center, and increase the activity of the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, reason, and calm. In short, you stop wildly reacting and begin intelligently creating strategies. Here are 3 simple ways to reconcile yourself with time. Rewrite the past as a resource. You cannot alter the events that occurred, but you can absolutely change how you interpret them. Ask yourself the simple question, what did I learn from this? By doing so, you instantly turn a painful memory into a valuable resource for future growth. Diffuse future anxiety. When you notice your mind racing ahead into worst-case scenarios, immediately ask the clarifying question, is this happening right now? That single question pulls your attention back to the safety and reality of the present moment. The anchoring practice. Choose an everyday object, a watch, a cup, a simple stone, and designate it as a reminder to return to the present. Every time you see or touch it, take a deep breath and consciously bring your full attention to the now. The rhythms of mastery. Time is also essential for consolidating new skills. When you learn something new, your brain needs dedicated rest intervals to strengthen the necessary neural connections. This is known as the spacing effect, and it's why studying a little bit each day is exponentially more effective than attempting to cram everything in one sleepless night. A fascinating study of violinists by psychologist Anders Ericsson found that the most virtuoso players didn't simply practice more hours than their peers. Instead, they structured their time into intense 90-minute blocks, followed by strategic rest. The secret wasn't constant, grinding effort, but using time wisely, respecting the brain's need for consolidation. The paradox. When time expands curiously, the more present and attentive we become, the more time seems to expand. Think about a day you spent traveling somewhere entirely new. Every detail was vivid, every experience felt prolonged and rich. Contrast that with a week where you repeated the same routine mindlessly. The days blend together and the weeks fly by unnoticed. This occurs because your brain registers time based on novelty and attention. The more mindful you are, the fuller and richer your experience of time becomes. I encourage you to try a simple, powerful exercise. Spend just 5 minutes a day stopping and observing something completely ordinary with your full, undistracted attention. It could be the sound of the rain, the taste of a piece of fruit, or the specific way you inhale and exhale. Do not underestimate this action. It is how you train your brain to consciously inhabit the present and free yourself from the tyranny of the clock. You get to choose how you inhabit time. Time isn't an executioner who pursues you. It's a stage upon which you decide how to act. You can be a slave to memories and worries, or you can use the present instant as your point of creation. Remember the wisdom of the philosopher Rabindranath Tagore. Time is the wealth of the poor, and the poor who know how to use it are richer than a king. You are already the owner of that wealth. You simply need to learn how to use it consciously. Time can be your most loyal ally, as long as you choose to live it mindfully. What is one small, everyday, anchoring practice? A visual cue or object you can implement today to remind yourself to return to the present. Chapter 7. 3 Brains. 1 Destiny. Becoming the conductor of your inner orchestra. When we picture the brain, we often imagine a single, uniform organ, a grey mass holding all our secrets. But the reality is that 3 distinct brains coexist inside you, each with its own language, priorities, and unique way of viewing the world. While they sometimes seem to clash, their ultimate shared destiny is to guide you toward the life you consciously build. Understanding these 3 systems is not just fascinating, it's essential for taking control of your transformation. After all, until you know who is speaking inside your head, you can't decide who to listen to. 1. The reptilian brain, the guardian of survival. The most ancient part of your brain, the reptilian brain, is the guardian of your basic survival. It manages primal functions, breathing, temperature regulation, and safety. Its logic is brutally simple. Survive. When sudden fear makes your heart race and your muscles tense, this brain is the one hitting the alarm. It doesn't care whether the threat is a predator or simply giving a presentation at work. It only recognizes the need to flee or fight. The problem arises when the reptilian system dominates your life. Your existence then shrinks into rigid safety routines. You eat the same things, think the same things, and do the same things. This guarantees safety, but it utterly forfeits growth and excitement. 2. The limbic brain, the artisan of emotion. The second level is the limbic brain, the fertile territory of emotions, memory, and social bonds. The experiences that deeply mark your life, your biggest joys and your deepest heartbreaks, are archived here. If a song ever made you tear up without a clear reason, your limbic brain was likely retrieving a memory your conscious mind had forgotten. This brain is driven by two powerful forces: the pursuit of connection and pleasure and the urgent avoidance of pain. It is a superb motivator, but also a formidable saboteur if left unchecked. For instance, it might push you to binge-eat sweets with the rationale that you deserve it, even when that action contradicts your long-term health goals. 3. The neocortex, the architect of possibilities. Finally, we have the neocortex, the undisputed jewel of human evolution. This is your rational, creative, and abstract brain, the system capable of planning, imagining, and solving complex, long-term problems. Your most ambitious ideas and inspiring projects are designed right here. The neocortex is the brilliant architect designing a towering skyscraper. But if it can't successfully convince the ancient reptilian, safety, and limbic, comfort, pleasure brains to cooperate, those blueprints will forever remain just plans on paper. The inner assembly. Integrating the three, most of your internal struggles come from the natural clash between these three systems. Your neocortex declares, "I want to run a marathon." Your limbic brain immediately counters, "I'd prefer to stay home watching movies. That's comfortable and provides instant pleasure." And your ancient reptilian brain screams, "No way, running that far is dangerous and wastes precious energy for survival." In the 1960s, neuroscientist Paul MacLean popularized the theory of the triune brain. Although modern science has refined the anatomical details, his core insight remains revolutionary. We are not a single, unified self, but an orchestra of systems in constant, sometimes messy negotiation. The case of Phineas Gage, the 19th century railroad worker who survived an iron bar piercing his skull, starkly illustrates this. Damage to his prefrontal neocortex left him impulsive and incapable of planning, revealing how each brain part plays a distinct and essential role. The key to unlocking your potential is not to eliminate one of the three, but to integrate them. The reptilian brain helps you live, the limbic brain helps you feel, and the neocortex helps you create. Together, properly conducted, they form a symphony. To achieve this integration, you must train internal communication. Listen to your reptilian brain. When sudden fear or strong resistance strikes, acknowledge it. Ask, "What do you want to protect me from?" Appreciate its protective intention, but consciously decide if the threat is genuinely real or merely perceived. Negotiate with your limbic brain. When a strong emotion or urge dominates, observe it without immediate judgment. Ask, "What story are you telling me right now?" By naming the emotion and questioning its narrative, you avoid being swept away by it. Activate your neocortex. Use conscious thought to design new routes. Write down your goals, plan the steps, and imagine the positive outcome. Give powerful, clear instructions to the architect within you. Practical exercise. The inner assembly. Imagine calling a meeting with your three internal systems. The reptilian raises a hand and says, "My priority is security and comfort." The limbic adds, "I want to feel loved, connected, and happy right now." The neocortex concludes, "I want to grow, learn, and build a meaningful future." Your task, as the conductor, is to create a plan that caters to all three. For example, when you decide to establish a consistent exercise routine, the reptilian gains tangible health benefits and survival capacity. The limbic receives the immediate, feel-good endorphins and sense of accomplishment, and the neocortex enjoys the progress and planning mastery. When you achieve this balance, your life aligns effortlessly. The destiny of all three brains is in fact the same, to help you live fully, but only if you assume the role of conductor. Try to silence none of them. Instead, give them each a place in the score. You are not a slave to your impulses, your emotions, or even your raw thoughts. You are the space in which they all coexist, and you have the power to decide how to harmonize them. As the writer Hermann Hesse said, "Several people live within us, and the art of life consists in living with them." You hold the baton. Chapter 8. The Power of Attention, the flashlight that shapes your reality. We live in the age of distraction. Phone notifications never stop, emails flood the inbox, and social media is meticulously engineered to keep us hooked. Everything in the modern world is in a fierce competition for your attention, yet attention is arguably the most valuable resource you possess. The rule of life is simple. What you pay attention to grows, what you ignore withers. Attention is like a powerful flashlight in the darkness. Wherever you point that focused beam, you gain clarity. Everything outside the beam fades away. Learning to deliberately direct your attention is fundamentally learning to direct your life. The selective filter of reality. What exactly is attention? It's not just the ability to focus. It's the highly selective process of choosing, from millions of possible stimuli, the handful you will focus on at any given moment. Your brain processes an astonishing 11 million bits of information per second, but you can only consciously attend to about 40 of those bits. Think about the profound implications of this. Your conscious reality is not absolute. It is the version that your attention selects. In 1999, Daniel Simons and Christopher Chabris conducted the famous invisible gorilla experiment. They showed participants a video of two teams passing a basketball and asked them to count the passes made by the white team. Astoundingly, nearly half the participants failed to notice a person in a gorilla costume slowly walk across the scene, beat their chest, and exit. Their focused attention on counting passes filtered out the gorilla. This experiment proves a critical point. What you don't pay attention to simply doesn't exist for you. How many invisible gorillas, opportunities, solutions, or positive details are you missing in your life right now because your attention is trapped on the wrong thing? Attention as creative energy neuroscience offers a simple mechanism for this power. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you concentrate your attention on a specific thought or task, you reinforce those associated neural connections. It is exactly like watering a plant. Where you put the water, the plant flourishes. Where you neglect to water, it dries up. If your attention is continually focused on worries and complaints, your brain will strengthen the anxiety circuits. If you deliberately direct it toward learning, gratitude, and possibilities, those positive circuits will expand. Attention doesn't just observe, it creates. The challenge is that your attention is both limited and highly coveted. Tech companies know this and have designed platforms to literally steal it. Every notification, infinite scroll, and like is engineered as a magnet for your mind. It's not simply a lack of personal discipline. You are fighting against industries that invest millions to study how to keep you hooked. Therefore, regaining your attention is not a luxury. It is a fundamental act of mental freedom. 4 strategies to train your focus. To turn your attention from a passive target into an active tool, use these strategies. Eliminate the superfluous. Dedicate specific blocks of time, even 30 minutes, to put your phone completely on airplane mode or in another room. This is uncomfortable at first, but profoundly liberating as your mind adapts. Train with simplicity. Pick an everyday object, a candle, a piece of fruit, a cup of coffee, and observe it for just 1 minute without allowing your mind to wander. This simple exercise is like lifting a weight for your ability to sustain focus. Mindfulness in action. Turn common, routine activities, washing dishes, walking, taking a shower, into mindful practices. Bring your full focus to the sensation of the water, the texture of the soap, or the feeling of your feet on the ground. 1. Focus at a time. Multitasking is a myth. Your brain rapidly switches tasks, but each jump drains energy and diminishes quality. Commit to working on one single thing, finishing it, and then deliberately moving to the next. Attention is happiness. A groundbreaking Harvard University study revealed a clear link. People report being happier when their attention is on what they are currently doing, regardless of the activity. In other words, you can experience greater well-being washing dishes mindfully than daydreaming about a vacation while working. Happiness doesn't depend so much on what you do, but on where your attention resides. When you learn to direct your attention, You become the true architect of your mind. You stop being a victim of external noise and begin to consciously choose where to invest your most valuable energy. Remember the words of William James, the pioneer of modern psychology. The art of being wise is the art of knowing what to overlook. That is your mission, to learn to focus, sustain and fiercely protect your attention as the vital resource that it is. Your life is what you choose to pay attention to. Chapter 9. Meditation without mysteries, training the ultimate muscle. The word meditation typically conjures very specific, often inaccessible images: silent monks, robes, distant temples, endless mantras, and burning incense. While these forms are valid and powerful, meditation is not the privilege of Eastern sages, nor an inaccessible religious practice. In reality, meditation is nothing more than mental training, as practical and tangible as exercising a muscle. Its goal is not the impossible task of emptying the mind, but rather learning to observe and consciously direct it. Think of it like learning to drive a stick-shift car. It feels awkward and counterintuitive at first, but with consistent practice it becomes a natural, effortless skill. How meditation physically reshapes your brain. In recent decades, neuroscience has subjected meditation to rigorous study, yielding remarkable results. Researchers like Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin found that consistent meditators show increased activity in the left prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain associated with positive emotions and resilience. MRI scans have revealed that meditation can strengthen the hippocampus, key for memory and learning, and critically reduce the size and activity of the amygdala, the brain's fear and anxiety center. Simply put, meditation isn't a spiritual concept. It literally reshapes the physical structure of your brain for greater calm and clarity. The power of observation over resistance. In 1979, Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn created the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction (MBSR) program for patients suffering from chronic pain. Many had exhausted traditional treatments. By practicing simple breathing and mindfulness exercises, they experienced genuine, significant relief. The revolutionary finding wasn't a magic cure, but a profound change in the patient's relationship with their pain. Instead of fighting the pain, they learned to observe it without resistance. That shift in mental posture transformed their entire physical and emotional experience. Dispelling common myths. It's time to clear the air and remove any lingering misconceptions. Myth 1. Meditation is about blanking your mind. False. The mind is a thought-producing machine. The goal is simply to observe those thoughts, like clouds passing in the sky, without getting caught up in their narrative. Myth 2. I need a lot of time. False. You can begin to see noticeable changes with just 5 to 10 minutes a day. Consistency, daily practice, is far more important than duration. Myth 3. It's a religious practice. False. While incorporated into various traditions, meditation is a universal, secular technique, like stretching or walking, that anyone can adopt. How to get started? The 3-step anchor. You need no fuss, no expensive equipment, and no incense. Just a straight back and a willingness to be present. Here is a simple, effective exercise to begin. Find your posture. Sit in a chair or on the floor with your back straight but relaxed. Your body should feel stable and alert. Focus on your breathing. Bring your full attention to the sensation of the air moving in and out of your body. Don't try to control the breath. Simply observe its natural rhythm. This is your anchor. Return when you wander. Your mind will wander to a task, a memory, or a worry. This is not failure. It is the entire practice. Every time you notice the distraction and gently, non-judgmentally return your attention to the breath, that is the moment you strengthen your focus muscle. Practice this for 5 to 10 minutes at first. Variations to explore. Once comfortable with the breath, you can expand your training. Body scan. Slowly move your attention through each part of your body, noticing any sensations, tingling, warmth, tension, without trying to change them. Walking meditation. Pay attention to the physical sensation of each step, lifting the foot, moving it forward, and the contact with the floor. Attention to sounds. Close your eyes and observe the noises around you. Hear them fully, label them, and let them pass, without attaching a story or judgment to them. Each technique is merely a different pathway to train your mind to be present. The real impact on everyday life. The most powerful benefits of meditation don't occur during the practice, but in the moments afterward. You will find you react less impulsively, your mind is clearer, and you can genuinely enjoy simple moments more fully. For example, a colleague criticizes you at work. Before, you might have reacted with immediate, sharp anger. After weeks of meditation, you notice the impulse, take a quiet breath, and choose to respond calmly. That tiny pause changes the entire interaction. Imagine your mind is a lake. When stirred by wind and external chaos, the water is filled with ripples and you can't see the bottom. Meditation doesn't eliminate the wind, but it teaches you the patience to wait until the water calms. Then, clarity, intuition, and peace become visible. Don't worry about doing it perfectly. Every session, even the most chaotic one, is valuable. The simple act of sitting down to observe your mind is an act of rebellion against constant distraction. As Zen master Shunryu Suzuki wisely said, meditation is not about improving someone else, it's about improving yourself. Meditation is ultimately a gift you give yourself, a few minutes each day to reconnect with your own calm, resilient center. Chapter 10. Rewriting Your Personal Story. You are the author, not the prisoner. We all carry an invisible narrator within us, that insistent voice that tells you who you are, where you came from, and what you can expect from life. This narrator weaves your memories, your perceived failures, and your achievements into a coherent personal story. The core problem is that this inner narrator often clings to painful chapters or limiting labels, ultimately writing a restrictive script in which you feel like a prisoner. But here is the truly good news. Your story is not set in stone. You have the power to review it, reinterpret it, and even fundamentally rewrite it. What you were yesterday absolutely does not dictate who you will be tomorrow. The flexible fabric of memory humans are fundamentally storytellers. Since the earliest days, we've told stories to understand ourselves and make sense of a confusing world. But here's the neuroscientific secret. Your memories are not exact, unchangeable recordings of events. They are interpretations that you subtly update every time you recall them. Neuroscientist Karim Nader's research showed that when you actively retrieve a memory, it becomes temporarily vulnerable and can be modified before being stored again. This means that every time you consciously recall an event, you are, in a very real sense, rewriting it. Why not leverage this plasticity to create a story that empowers you instead of trapping you? Our brain's need for narrative is so powerful, it invents stories even from the abstract. In 1944, psychologists Fritz Heider and Marion Simmel showed people a short film of simple moving geometric figures. Astonishingly, most viewers described the scene as a story. The jealous triangle chases the circle, and the square tries to escape. If your brain can invent complex social dramas involving triangles, imagine the powerful automatic narratives it constructs around your own life events. The burden of borrowed scripts. Many of the chapters you believe are uniquely yours are actually borrowed scripts. They originate from childhood phrases, a harsh criticism from a teacher, comparisons with a sibling, or limiting societal expectations. All of this material seeps into your inner narrator, creating phrases like, "I'm bad at math," "I'm not good at holding down a serious relationship," or "No one in my family ever goes far." These phrases do not describe absolute realities. They describe interpretations that solidified into self-limiting scripts. How to become your own editor and author. To rewrite your story and free yourself from these inherited limitations, follow these 4 steps. Identify the dark chapters. Make a list of the specific memories you repeat most often, or the negative phrases that define you in your own mind. Name the limitation. Question them. Ask yourself the clarifying question, is this a fact or is it an interpretation? For example, failing an exam is a fact. Saying, "I am a failure," is an interpretation you chose to attach to the fact. Find a thread of resilience. Look closely at those painful moments and ask how they also gave you resources. Perhaps that difficult experience made you tougher, more empathetic, or more creatively resourceful. Turn the event from a weakness into a source of strength. Create a new narrative. Consciously write your story from the perspective of the hero who overcomes trials. Instead of, "I was bankrupt in business," write, "I gained invaluable lessons that now prepare me to undertake more wisely and resiliently." Practical exercise. Your alternative autobiography. Spend 20 minutes writing about your life as if you were the protagonist of an epic novel. Exaggerate your current achievements. Turn your falls and setbacks into heroic trials. Infuse the entire narrative with a strong sense of adventure and inevitability towards success. This may seem like a simple game, but it actively activates new neural connections that powerfully strengthen your self-confidence and expectations for the future. Think of your story as a book. You cannot tear out the painful chapters, but you can certainly write the following ones with a different tone, a bolder protagonist and an entirely new direction. The key is not to deny the past, but to reinterpret it so that it becomes the necessary foundation for something far better. Stories of transformation. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. He could have written a story of being a helpless victim of injustice. Instead, he narrated his life as that of a man who transformed suffering into a triumphant, world-changing struggle for freedom. Frida Kahlo lived with constant physical pain. Her story could have been one of resignation, but she chose to narrate herself as an artist who fiercely transformed pain into transcendent art. You too get to decide from what angle to tell your life. The essential truth here is that you are the author of your personal history. You cannot always control the events that occur, but you retain absolute control over the meaning you assign to those events. And that meaning is what changes your present and your future. As Viktor Frankl, a concentration camp survivor, taught, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." You are not a fixed character. You are the writer holding the pen in your hand. Chapter 11. The Art of Mental Creation, Using Your Imagination as a Laboratory. Everything that exists in the world, a song, a skyscraper, an innovative invention, even major social movements, began first in someone's mind. Before becoming tangible reality, they were just images and ideas. That's the art of mental creation. Using your imagination not as a means of escape, but as a disciplined laboratory for building your desired future. The key difference between simple daydreaming and mental creation lies in the intention. Daydreaming is letting your mind wander aimlessly. Mental creation is actively directing it with purpose, like a sculptor choosing each precise stroke to shape their final work. The brain doesn't distinguish. Mental practice is real training. A fascinating neuroscientific discovery is the fact that your brain responds very similarly to what you vividly imagine and what you physically experience. When you mentally rehearse an action, you activate the same neural circuits as if you were actually performing it. In a classic experiment with basketball players, psychologist Alan Richardson split participants into 3 groups. One group physically practiced free throws, another only mentally rehearsed them, and a third did no practice at all. After several weeks, the group that only practiced mentally improved almost as much as the group that practiced physically. This finding confirms that mental creation isn't mere fantasy, it's a form of real neurological training. Inventors have long understood this power. Thomas Edison used a curious method to stimulate his mental creation. He'd sit in an armchair holding metal balls. As he drifted into a half-sleep state, the balls would drop, waking him up just as his mind entered the liminal state between wakefulness and sleep. Many of his great ideas emerged in that space where imagination flows unfiltered. Edison intuitively understood what science confirms today. The mind can be trained to generate new connections and creative solutions. 4 steps to practice. Mental creation. How do you move beyond random thought and practice intentional mental creation? Define what you want clearly. Your brain requires concrete images. Instead of the vague thought, "I want success," visualize precisely what success looks and feels like to you, the specific office, the conversation, the feeling of accomplishment. Use all your senses. Your mental picture should be multisensory. Imagine not only the visual image, but the associated sounds, applause, calm music, smells, new book, fresh air, and textures. The more sensory input, the more real the experience is for your brain. Feel as if it's already true. This is the key ingredient: emotion. It's not enough to intellectually imagine the scene. You need to feel the powerful, positive emotion of the realized experience in your body: joy, relief, or confidence. Repeat consistently. Like any skill, mental creation is strengthened with daily, focused practice. Dedicate at least 10 minutes a day to this directed visualization. Practical exercise: mental rehearsal. Close your eyes and clearly imagine a situation you want to master: a critical job interview, a challenging exam, or a competition. Visualize yourself performing it calmly and successfully. Notice your confident posture, your articulate voice, and your relaxed emotions. Repeat this rehearsal several times. When the real moment arrives, your brain will recognize it as something already experienced, reducing anxiety and boosting performance. Mental creation and identity. The true deep power of this practice lies here. Every time you mentally rehearse a positive outcome, you're not just training an action, you're actively shaping your identity. If you visualize yourself every day as a confident, creative, and capable person, your brain begins to physically build that resilient version of you. Your repeated, intentional thoughts are the conscious instructions your mind uses to define who you are. Mental creation is, therefore, a deliberate method of choosing which instructions to give. Think of your mind as a carpentry workshop. If you allow only random materials and chaotic designs, the result will be messy. But if you consciously choose the wood, the tools, and the design, you can build something beautiful and solid. Mental creation is the conscious choice of your internal materials. Jim Carrey, when he was a struggling actor, famously wrote himself a fictitious check for $10 million for acting services rendered and kept it in his wallet. Years later, he earned that exact amount for a movie role. This wasn't magic. It was the power of sustained focus and mental alignment which paved the way for action. Your mind is a canvas, and every day you paint on it with your thoughts, images, and emotions. The crucial question is, do you paint randomly or with clear intention? As Goethe declared, whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Dare to use the art of mental creation. What you imagine with conviction today can absolutely become your tomorrow. Chapter 12. Emotions as a drive, fueling your transformation. Imagine your mind is a powerful, state-of-the-art sports car, full of speed and possibility. Now consider what makes that car move. It's not the design or the wheels, but the fuel, the gasoline. In your life, emotions are that fuel. Without them, any brilliant plan, goal, or learning process remains inert on paper. Emotions are the essential spark that turns an idea into action. You might intellectually know what you should do, but until you feel it, you often won't do it. And the best part is, though they often feel chaotic or uncontrollable, emotions can be trained and harnessed to become your greatest driving force. The compass and alarm system. For a long time, emotions were dismissed as an irrational hindrance to logic. Today, we understand they are sophisticated communication systems between your body and your brain. They function as both alarms and compasses, informing you of what matters, giving you the energy to act, and leaving deep, lasting traces in your memory. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio explained it clearly. We are not machines that think. We are machines that feel that think. In other words, emotion is the foundational substrate for every decision you make. The classic case of the merchant Elliot in 1848 proved this paradox. After a brain injury damaged the connection between his prefrontal cortex and his limbic system, Elliot retained his intelligence, but lost the ability to feel emotions. The result was startling. Though he could reason perfectly, he became incapable of making practical decisions. He'd spend hours agonizing over what color pen to use or which route to take to work. This showed that emotion is not the enemy of reason, but its essential ally. Without emotion, reason is paralyzed. Energy that can be redirected. Every emotion is a charge of energy. Anger mobilizes your body to fight or defend. Sadness prompts you to pause and reflect. Joy opens your mind to new possibilities and connections. Crucially, no emotions are bad in and of themselves. The problem lies in getting stuck in one without learning how to channel its energy. A momentary fear can save you from danger, but chronic fear locks you in an invisible prison. Brief sadness helps you process loss, but sustained sadness leads to apathy. The key is learning to read that energy and redirect it purposefully. How to train your emotions as a driving force. If you want your emotions to serve as your engine instead of your anchor, you need to train them. Name them. Putting a word to what you feel immediately reduces its intensity. Saying, "I feel anxious," rather than just being anxious, activates your neocortex and begins to calm the emotional limbic system. Breathe through them. Deep, slow breathing is the fastest way to regulate intense emotions because it directly impacts your autonomic nervous system. Focus on extending your exhale to signal safety to your body. Redirect the energy. When you feel a powerful, mobilizing emotion like anger or restless energy, use it constructively. Channel anger into intense exercise or productive labor. Channel sadness or grief into writing or creative expression. Turn the emotion into deliberate, creative action. Cultivate expansive emotions. Gratitude, compassion, and joy have a multiplying effect on your mental health and performance. Actively look for small things to appreciate daily to strengthen these circuits. Imagine your emotions like a team of wild horses. If you let them run free, they will drag you wherever they please. But if you learn to hold the reins with awareness and skill, you can gallop powerfully toward any goal. Emotion doesn't disappear, it is transformed into momentum. Inspiring examples of emotional drive. Malala Yousafzai, after surviving an attack by the Taliban, could have remained locked in fear. Instead, she transformed that intense emotion into courage and became a powerful global advocate for girls' education. Nick Vujicic, born without arms or legs, transformed frustration and sadness into the driving force to inspire millions with his message of hope. Both show that the path is not about eliminating painful emotions, but about turning them into constructive, unstoppable energy. Every day offers you micro-opportunities to train your emotions. When someone irritates you in traffic, when you receive unexpected criticism, or when you feel gratitude for a small gesture. If in those moments you consciously choose how to respond, you are strengthening your emotional muscle. The central message is clear. Your emotions are not an obstacle. They are your driving force. If you learn to recognize, regulate, and redirect them, they become the force that propels you to grow. Remember the words of Helen Keller. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Hope, confidence, passion, they are all powerful emotions, and they are all available to you. The goal is not to feel less. The goal is to feel better and move with that feeling. Chapter 13. From Thought to Inspired Action, Building the Bridge to Reality. Surely you've experienced the frustrating gap between thought and reality. You brainstorm exciting projects, dream big goals, and get enthusiastic about ambitious plans, but they never materialize. The distance between merely thinking and acting is where most dreams wither and die. The challenge isn't just having brilliant ideas, it's transforming those ideas into concrete, immediate steps. That's the essence of inspired action. It's not about moving aimlessly, inertia, but acting with clear direction, motivation, and meaning. The deceptive lure of procrastination. Your brain is hardwired to conserve energy. When an idea pops up that requires significant effort, it immediately activates resistance mechanisms. Better tomorrow, I'm not ready yet, or when I have more time. This inner voice, which masquerades as logic and caution, is actually fear disguised as foresight. Inspired action cuts through that inertia. It's about moving forward, even if your plan isn't fully perfected, trusting that the path will become clearer only as you move along it. In 1910, a pilot named Eugene Ely made history by executing the first airplane takeoff from the deck of a ship. No one had done it. Many considered the idea reckless. Ely didn't wait for perfected protocols or engineered safeguards. He attempted it and opened the door to modern naval aviation. If Ely had waited for the perfect moment, that story would never have been written. His inspired action changed the course of technology. The power of implementation plans. Psychologist Peter Gollwitz's research confirms that having a clear intention, "I want to exercise more," is often not enough to guarantee achievement. What makes the crucial difference are implementation plans, deciding in advance when, where, and how you will act. For example, the vague desire, "I want to exercise more," is ineffective. The concrete plan, "Tomorrow at 8 a.m. I will walk 30 minutes in the park," is highly effective. Thoughts provide the direction, but the committed action plan is the bridge to reality. 4 keys to inspired action. How do you translate great ideas into momentum? Define your purpose. Ask yourself why you truly want to do something. Purpose is the spark that fuels action. If the why is strong enough, the how becomes easier. Break it down. A massive goal paralyzes the reptilian brain, Chapter 7. Break it down into actions so incredibly simple you cannot fail, e.g., write 1 sentence, tidy 1 corner of the desk. Apply the 2-minute rule. If an action takes less than 2 minutes to complete, do it right now. This simple habit instantly destroys procrastination by bypassing the brain's inertia mechanism. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Every completed step, no matter how small, counts. The goal is to establish momentum, not to execute flawlessly. Inspired versus impulsive action. It's important not to confuse inspired action with hasty action. Impulsive action is moving frantically without direction, usually to escape discomfort or boredom. Inspired action is born from clear thinking and aligned emotion, purpose. It's like rowing a boat. You can either flail your arms aimlessly and tire yourself out, impulsive, or you can row with a clear bearing and move forward smoothly and powerfully, inspired. Remember, emotion is the fuel that transforms an idea into movement, Chapter 12. If you associate your actions with positive feelings, e.g., listening to powerful music while tackling a difficult task, you solidify the habit more quickly. Practical exercise, the first visible step. Choose 1 goal you've been putting off. Write it down. Now, decide what the absolute first visible step is, an action so small you can complete it in less than 24 hours. Goal, learn a new language. First step, download the learning app. Goal, start a side project. First step, send 1 email to someone who inspires you. Do it. That minimal action activates your brain's progress circuit, which releases motivating chemicals and pushes you to continue. Imagine your life is a blank canvas. Thinking is having the colors ready on the palette, but until you touch the brush to the canvas, there will be no painting. Inspired action is the first stroke. It may be imperfect or clumsy, but it is the courageous beginning of the work. The message is clear. Thoughts are seeds, but only action turns them into fruit. You don't need to wait for perfection. You need to take the first step. As Goethe said, "Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it." Boldness has genius, power, and magic. That magic happens when your thought, emotion, and action align. Chapter 14. The Expansive Mind. Daring to go beyond the ordinary. Think of your mind as a balloon. With every new experience, every lesson absorbed, and every emotion processed, that balloon subtly expands. Now, imagine if you consciously decided to inflate it far beyond its usual capacity. What you would discover is the expansive mind, that extraordinary ability to go beyond the habitual, to open doors to radical creativity, deep intuition, and meaningful connection with the unknown. This expansive state is not a mystical gift reserved for a few. It is a natural, inherent potential we all possess. The expansive mind is simply a brain freed from the rut of routine, actively trained to explore the new and uniquely capable, of connecting dots that previously seemed impossible to join. Creativity, the art of joining the unexpected. Creativity never arises out of a vacuum. It is born when your brain connects two or more previously unconnected ideas. As the scientist Henri Poincaré noted, creativity essentially consists of joining existing elements in new combinations. Consider the example of engineer Georges de Mestral. After a simple walk in the countryside, he noticed how the burrs, thistles, stubbornly stuck to his clothes and his dog's fur. That seemingly trivial observation, when processed by an expansive mind, led directly to the invention of Velcro. The everyday became innovation, all thanks to a mind trained to see connections where others saw only annoyance. Intuition. Silent, high-speed wisdom. The expansive mind also manifests as intuition, that deep knowing without conscious, step-by-step reasoning. For years, science dismissed intuition as irrational, but today we recognize it as the concentrated fruit of millions of micro-experiences stored deep in your brain. Chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov described it perfectly. When I see a position on the board, my intuition tells me the correct move, even before analyzing it. This is not magic. It's the expansive mind accessing information and pattern recognition faster than conscious reason can process it. Opening your mind means accepting the necessary discomfort of not having all the answers. In fact, most great innovations emerge right at the edge of the unknown. Albert Einstein famously said, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious." Accepting mystery doesn't mean giving up. It means turning curiosity into your primary compass. The expansive mind dares to explore, even when the final path is completely unclear. 4 strategies for cultivating expansion. How do you deliberately stretch the limits of your mental balloon? Seek novelty. Every time you try something genuinely new, a different language, an unfamiliar sport, a new art form, your brain is forced to create new neural pathways. Novelty is brain food. Combine disciplines. Innovation usually emerges at the intersection of ideas. Leonardo da Vinci combined art and science. You can combine technology with philosophy or biology with design. Force unlikely mergers. Embrace silence and solitude. Many profound ideas emerge when your deliberate, conscious mind disconnects. Walking without music, meditating, chapter 9, or simply sitting quietly are essential gateways to expansive, pattern-forming thought. Ask improbable questions. Instead of asking, "What is the right thing to do?" ask, "What would happen if I did the exact opposite?" Questioning your assumptions breaks the rigid walls of your current thinking. In 1968, designer Richard Buckminster Fuller was facing financial ruin. He responded by dedicating his life to answering a single, enormous question: what can I, as an individual, do to improve the lives of all humanity? That expansive mindset led him to invent the geodesic dome, lightweight, resistant structures that inspire sustainable solutions today. Fuller didn't seek immediate personal benefit. He expanded his mind toward a greater universal purpose. Contraction versus expansion. The opposite of the expansive mind is the contracted mind, one that clings desperately to what is known, fears error, and repeats the same thoughts and actions endlessly. This mindset offers short-term security, but tragically robs you of long-term possibility. Mental contraction feeds on fear. Expansion thrives on curiosity. And like any muscle, what you train is what will grow. Think of your mind as a sky. Contraction is the dense cloud cover that blocks your view. Expansion is the moment the clouds dissipate and you realize the sky was always infinitely bigger than you had previously assumed. An expansive mind isn't just useful for creating or inventing. It gives you a richer perspective on yourself and your life. It allows you to see problems as opportunities, challenges as valuable lessons, and mysteries as exciting invitations. Remember the words of the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Expand your mind not to have all the answers, but to dare to live in the magnificent breadth of the questions. Chapter 15. Your New Reality. Integration and the Power of Identity. You have completed a significant inner journey. You discovered that your brain is plastic and changeable. Chapter 1. Learned to dismantle the traps of the environment. Chapter 4. Understood the powerful fuel of emotions. Chapter 12. And explored the twin forces of attention and mental creation. Chapters 8, 11. Now, the final crucial step. Integrating all of this knowledge into a powerful new starting point. Your new reality. The difference between change and transformation. It's vital to distinguish between two concepts. Change happens when you modify something external, a job, a diet, a routine. Transformation happens within you. It is when your identity evolves and you become fundamentally a different person than you were before. The true goal of unlocking your mental abilities is not merely to do more things. It is to become someone new, someone with a different consciousness, capable of seeing and living life from an expansive, empowered perspective. Identity, the glue of your future. As James Clear, an expert on habits, wisely suggests, the most powerful question isn't, what do I want to achieve, but who do I want to be? Your actions are simply a reflection of your identity. If you genuinely see yourself as a disciplined person, your daily decisions will naturally align with that vision. If you perceive yourself as a creative problem solver, you will instinctively begin to act accordingly. Identity is the glue that holds your habits and your new reality together. How to consolidate your new reality. Your new reality isn't a passive state. It's an identity you must actively build and reinforce daily. Act as your future self. Every day, take a moment to pause and ask, what would the version of me who has already achieved this goal do right now? Make your decisions from the perspective of that integrated, successful identity. Create conscious rituals. Small symbolic actions anchor your transformation. This might be a ritual of journaling every morning, sitting for meditation before turning on your phone, or repeating a personal mantra that affirms your new capabilities. Surround yourself with positive reflections. Actively seek environments, books, and people who remind you of who you are choosing to be, not who you were in the past. Your environment should reflect your aspirations. Celebrate micro changes. Don't wait for gigantic, earth-shattering results. Recognize and celebrate every small step, every time you choose inspired action over procrastination, every time you choose calm over reaction. These are the daily evidences of your new reality. The maintenance of growth. Your transformation is not a final destination, but an ongoing, dynamic process. The mind naturally tends to revert to the familiar, comfortable old patterns. This is why you must consistently remind yourself of who you are now. Every day is an opportunity to reaffirm your expansive identity and consciously choose your path. Practical advice. Treat this book not as passive reading, but as a living reference. Review the chapters and return to the exercises, the key questions and the examples. Conscious repetition is what turns a temporary shift into a lasting transformation. Think of yourself as a navigator who has learned to read the map of their own mind. At first, the waters may have seemed turbulent and uncontrollable, but now you know how to use the rudder of your attention, the engine of your emotions, and the sails of your creativity. The sea will always have storms, but you are no longer a ship adrift. You are the captain of your journey. The new reality you build will be directly proportional to your commitment to your own growth. You don't need to be perfect or have all the answers. All you need to do is choose each day to move one intentional step closer to the version of yourself you already envision. As Marianne Williamson beautifully stated, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. That power is already within you. You've felt it surge in every chapter of this book. Now it is your turn to live it. This book doesn't end here. It is an open invitation to continue exploring, practicing, and expanding your boundless mental abilities. Your brain, your mind, and your life are far more flexible than you ever imagined. Don't settle for surviving. Dare to create, transform, and live your new reality fully. Final thoughts. The infinite within you have reached the end of this listening experience, but I assure you, your personal exploration is just beginning. If you take only one idea from this entire book, let it be this: your potential is not fixed, it is infinite. The human mind is not a static ceiling, but a dynamic, growing entity that responds to conscious direction. Every limiting belief we shattered, the myth of fixed talent, the tyranny of the clock, the chains of environment, was a door opening to possibility. You are now equipped with the tools to become the master of your own mental operating system. You know how to use neuroplasticity to your advantage. You understand how to harness emotions as fuel for action. You have the practice to focus and protect your valuable attention. You are the author of your personal story, free to rewrite the script at any moment. Your transformation is not a one-time event. It is a daily discipline. Continue to practice the expansive mind strategies, question your inherited scripts, and choose inspired action over procrastination. Before you go, commit to consistency. Choose one single practice from this book, a mindfulness technique, a boundary for your environment, or a mental rehearsal, and commit to doing it for the next 30 days. Consistency is the engine of change. Share your insight. If this book shifted your perspective, please leave a quick review. This simple act of sharing helps others discover these powerful mental tools. Your code word. To acknowledge your commitment to this journey, comment below with the word expansion. Thank you for the privilege of sharing this journey with you. Remember, your mind is your greatest asset. Dare to use it to its full magnificent potential.